In a dusty, messy room, Cinderella was on her knees scrubbing the floor while her stepsisters yelled and pointed angrily at her. Her eyes looked sad, but her heart stayed kind and patient. Suddenly, the two stepsisters came in angrily, each one shouting and blaming her for the mess. Cinderella stood holding her broom, trying to calm them down. Cinderella went up to the attic and sat on her old wooden bed. A small ray of light came through the window, making her feel lonely, yet still holding on to a little hope. Suddenly, a bright, magical light appeared. The fairy godmother stood before her with a warm smile, spreading gentle sparkles around. Cinderella was scared at first, then comforted. With one touch of her wand, the fairy godmother lit up the whole attic. Cinderella's torn dress transformed into a beautiful, sparkling blue gown. She stood stunned by the magic. Outside in the garden, the fairy turned a pumpkin into a golden carriage, and a shining white horse appeared. Cinderella lifted the curtain of the carriage with pure joy. Cinderella arrived at the palace, walking gracefully down the stairs. The prince stared at her, amazed by her elegance. Her stepsisters were furious and jealous. Inside the grand hall, the prince held Cinderella's hand and danced with her. Everyone watched them in admiration, while the stepsisters stood frozen in shock. As the clock neared midnight, Cinderella rushed away in panic, the prince chasing after her. In her hurry, her glass slipper slipped off on the stairs. The prince stopped on the staircase, bent down, and picked up the glowing slipper. He was determined to find the girl who stole his heart. The next morning, the prince went to the stepmother's house. He stood at the door holding the slipper politely while she pretended to be calm despite her anger. The younger stepsister tried with all her strength to force her foot inside the slipper. She pushed and struggled, but it simply wouldn't fit. Then the older stepsister tried too, shoving her foot in with all her might. Her face turned red with frustration, but the slipper refused to go in. Jealous and terrified, the stepmother grabbed Cinderella and pushed her to a dark attic room, locking her inside so she couldn't meet the prince. Cinderella tried to open the locked door with trembling hands. A thin beam of light from the round window made the room feel even colder and lonelier. The prince reached the tower. He carefully pushed open the old wooden door and peeked inside, searching for any sign of her. When Cinderella saw the prince, her eyes widened and her knees shook with surprise, but her heart filled with happiness and relief. He took her back to the palace, knelt before her, and gently placed the slipper on her foot, right in front of the shocked stepmother and stepsisters. Cinderella stood up, the slipper glowing perfectly on her foot. The prince knew instantly she was the girl from the ball. Everyone stood speechless. Cinderella and the prince walked toward the magical carriage, smiling warmly at each other as moonlight lit the garden full of flowers. The carriage began to move along the path, and Cinderella and the prince waved goodbye through the window while fairy magic danced in the air. At the palace celebration, everyone clapped joyfully. Cinderella and the prince stood in the center smiling brightly, while the fairy godmother floated above them with pride. The whole kingdom gathered. Confetti filled the air, music echoed across the hall, and Cinderella stood beside the prince glowing with happiness, beginning the life she always wished for. Thank you for watching! Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Coquina's channel.